Okay, here we go. Part 2 of the practice paper. Sticking with question 1C, the SWOT analysis. We'll look very quickly now at the opportunities that Aaron Furniture have. Don't forget, strengths and weaknesses are normally internal to the business, inside the business. Opportunities and threats, these bottom two, are normally external to the business. So the business hasn't really got much control of them, but can take advantage of them. So opportunities for Aaron Furniture are that it can export its products to Canada, Eurozone and the rest of the world, because we always have exported to the rest of the world. I know at the moment we're talking about limitations and restrictions if we leave the Euro, but 80% of what we sell generally goes to the rest of the world anyway, and we are good at exporting. We export more than we import. In fact, is that true? I think we import quite a lot, but we are big exporters, of which most of what we export doesn't go to Eurozone countries, it goes to the rest of the world. So lots of opportunities there, like other companies, car manufacturers. 80% of what we make in the UK goes to the rest of the world. Opportunities to import sustainable wood, which is all part of their strategy to say how great they are in terms of maintaining that sustainable, environmental, eco-friendly image. They're also looking at the opportunity of buying a biomass burner, which again will reduce costs. And they're also looking at a new factory being available locally to where they are already, so not too much of an inconvenience. More importantly, they're not going to lose the workforce if the factory is just up the road. If the new factory was in a different city or another country, then you would probably leave your skilled workforce behind. So there's a bit of a link there that you might want to point out in the exam. So lots of opportunities for Aaron Furniture to keep going and turn the company around. The threats, however, are that although we are growing and we are coming out of a recession, this growth is slow, people are nervous, and the Euro question at the moment is probably going to make it even slower, because everybody thinks that if we leave Europe we will have a little blip and a dip and prices will go up and it'll put us back into a recession. Personally, I have a view on that. It might in the short term, but in the long term we'll get out of it like we always do. But growth is still slow, and the case study says that, so you have to point that out. There's also possible interest rate rises. They've been threatening that though for many years now. We've never had interest rates so low at 1%. And there's no short-term 6-12 month plan to increase interest rates significantly. So possibly they could go up if you're going to borrow money. It will be more expensive. But if you're going to borrow money, borrow it now, fix it for 5 years so that the interest rate rises won't affect the business. Competition from the Far East and from Sweden and Norwegian firms in the UK has been a threat for quite a long time. It will continue to be a threat until costs go up in those countries. But, you know, we're not just talking about costs, we're talking about quality. So if we can maintain the quality and keep the prices keen, people will always pay a premium for quality products. Question 2A, part 1. Explain what is meant by each of the following cost terms and give an example for each of costs incurred by Aaron Furniture Limited. So 4 marks, it's fixed costs and variable costs. And what it says there is, look, 1 mark for the explanation, and 1 mark for an example, up to 2 marks. Well, if you do an explanation and give an example, you've got 2 marks. So, first of all, what are fixed costs? Well, you must know by now that fixed costs are those that do not change with the level of production or output in the short term. When we say short term, we mean the next 12 months. So, factory rent, loan repayments, administration costs, directors' salaries, are all fixed for a 12-month period until you negotiate what they're going to be for the next 12 months. Whereas variable costs are those costs that do change with the level of production or output. So that is the cost of materials for that production, so the wood in this case, the cost of production labour, those wages that we pay people on an hourly rate every week would change. So a couple of examples of variable costs, a couple of examples of fixed costs with an explanation of each. Question 2A, part 2. When more units are produced, explains what happens in the short term for 12 marks. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 points to make, and those 6 points will require you to give an explanation with an example potentially to support that explanation for each one. So, fixed cost per unit. Well, you know fixed cost per unit don't change in the short term, but they do fall because as you make more stuff, the cost per item falls. So fixed cost per unit, if the units didn't change, would be the same, but it's quite clear, isn't it? If the fixed cost were 10,000 and you made £10,000, you made 10,000 products, that's £1 per product. If you made 20,000 products for the same fixed cost, then you would halve the fixed cost. So fixed cost per unit do fall as the fixed cost is spread across more units made if quantities increase in terms of production. Variable cost per units, well, they never change. If it costs you 25p to make a product, then you can make 100 products or 1,000 products. The cost per product would be the same because the cost per unit hasn't changed anyway. Total costs. What happens to total costs? Well, total cost will increase because of the additional variable cost per unit. So the fixed element of total cost will not change, but the variable element will change. So that's your explanation of that. If you want to put an example of the variable cost element, see question above. Total fixed costs. Well, total fixed costs stay the same because costs do not increase with production in the short term. They might in the long term if prices go up, but then you'll fix them again for the next 12 months. Total variable costs, well, they do increase with production because a cost is incurred for each unit produced. And finally, for your 12 out of 12, average costs. Well, average costs are total costs divided by the number of units. This will generally fall because of the fixed cost element not changing and being spread across more units made. So hopefully that's a very quick explanation of how to get 12 out of 12 on that question. Question 7a part 3. Explain what is meant by break even for a business. 2 marks for that, so 2 marks for a full explanation, and you don't have to write a lot. Look, break even is the point at which costs are equal to revenue. The business makes no profit or no loss. And there is an explanation of, you can do a calculation here and throw it in if you wanted to, from the case study on the bedside tables, but for 2 marks I wouldn't bother because that is a good enough explanation for those 2 marks. Question 2a part 4. Using the break-even formula, calculate the break-even for bedside tables made by Aaron Furniture using figure given in extract 2. Give your answer in numbers by bedside tables and as total revenue showing your workings. So 2 parts to that question for 6 marks. So I would go for the equation part, I would state what the equation is for a mark. So break-even units equals total fixed costs divided by selling price minus variable cost. That'll get you a mark. You then slot in the figures from extract 2, which is 12,000 divided by 1,800, selling price of bedside tables, minus 120, the cost of bedside tables. And then you'll probably get the 3rd mark for coming up with the right answer of 200. So 3 steps. For any question with a calculation, write down the formula, 1 mark, put in the figures from the case study, 2 marks, and do the calculation, 3 marks, 1 mark extra. If the figures from the case study don't fit, then I guess you've got the wrong equation. So that 3-pronged attack to doing calculations on exam questions is the same at A-level, I would say, as GCSE. And it says underneath there, look, break even in revenue, 1 mark for identifying correct figures, method, 1 mark for the correct answers. I've just said that. So total break-even revenue, which is the second part of the question, give the answer in number of bedside tables, 200, and total revenue. So we know we're selling these bedside tables for £1,800 each. We know to break even we need to sell 200. So the break-even revenue this company has to make on bedside tables alone is quite an easy calculation. 200 to break even of bedside tables times the selling price, £180, is £36,000. So quite an easy 3 marks for that second part if you get the correct answer. Yeah, but so the equation would be total break-even revenue equals break-even quantity times selling price and then drop the numbers in. 200 times 180 equals the answer there, 3,600. Okay, question 2b. Explain what is meant by the margin of safety. Well, the margin of safety, if you look at the PowerPoint on the blog page, margin of safety is no more than the difference between the actual sales and the break-even sales. So if the actual sales are 200 and the break-even sales are 150, you have 50 sales more than break-even of profit. Or you could say that the break-even, so the sales could drop by 50 before you start making a profit on that product. So it's a 2-mark question. Again, 1 mark for explaining that the amount is the difference between a firm's break-even point and its actual output, and 1 mark for explaining the relevance in terms of profitability. So although I've given you the answer and we talked it through in terms of exam technique, the suggested answer here is the margin of safety is the volume of sales above the break-even point. Break-even point, remember, is the point where the business makes no profit or no loss, or when total revenue equals total cost, or the amount by which sales could decrease before the product line becomes unprofitable. Easy peasy. Okay, question 2b part 2. Calculate the margin of safety in terms of units if actual sales are 231 bedside tables. Well, again, you know what the equation is now, so drop in the figures, get the answer. If the break-even point is 200 here, which we know from the calculation here, if that's a break-even point of 200 and they're actually selling 231, then the margin of safety, would you believe, 231 minus 200 is 31. Easy 2 marks. Question 2b part 3. Aaron Furniture Limited estimates that if the business reduces the cost of bedside tables by to 150 per unit, they will be able to sell 300 units. Show your calculations and recommend to the business with justification whether it should do this or not. So get the equation first. So break even, break even is at 150 pound selling price. So we've got the equation, break even total fixed cost minus selling price over variable cost. Drop in the numbers. 1200 is the break even fixed cost. 150 is the selling price, it's told us here, minus 120 the cost price, which means we have to sell those figures, that fixed cost and those selling prices and cost prices, we need to sell 400 units. So it says here, if we need to sell 400 units at £150 per unit to break even, the project is not worthwhile because the risk is greater than the benefits. So that's pretty straightforward if you ask me. Question 3a, describe how Aaron Furniture Limited currently organises production, warehousing and ensures quality control. 2 marks for each question there, you can see, look, 6 marks in total. Quite economic. So you can put here production. Currently job production, 1 mark, i.e. making bespoke products for our customers one by one. So that is currently what is happening. Look, currently organises. So not what you're recommending, but what he currently does. Currently means now, today, here. So currently the production at Aaron Furniture is job production, good quality, handmade, expensive, time consuming, to order, bespoke, to order, and to the specific requirements of customers. Warehousing, well at the moment, it's asking at the moment currently, warehousing orders every 3 months. So it has a shipload of wood coming in every 3 months, which it has to store in a warehouse. So you've got the cost of the wood, you've got the cost of the warehouse, you've got the cost of the waste, you've got the cost of the wear and tear, you've got the cost of the protecting the product, you've got the cost of potential pilferage, damage, mould, whatever. So that's what's currently going on. And in terms of quality control, currently it's using quality, ensuring a quality product is using the traditional quality control method. And you know that the traditional quality control method is the products are tested by specialist inspectors who know what they're doing at the end of the production process. So if anything's gone wrong at the end, then sadly it's too late. Gosh, run out of time again. So I'll stop there and do a third one.